Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by Imani Pullum to talk all about leading her television series Classified. And starting off in playing Ella, there's so many different layers throughout the series to her. But I was really curious about some of your first impressions and just that journey of starting to get to know who she was on the page, going through the audition process, because you didn't have the full scripts in the series at that point, obviously.
Yeah, so the really great thing about this show and this audition was when I got it, they described Ella so well and in great detail. So I felt like I knew her before I was even able to get the scripts and whatnot. And like I had one of the scripts like before I auditioned, but I didn't have all of them. But they just had so many details about her that I didn't feel like I needed to search for anything because it was already on the page.
That's so wonderful. And I remember when you were talking about your work on the Orville, that you talked a lot about working with your acting coach, Shelley Boone, on that and the script pages during the character development stages. And I was curious for this show if you were also working with her or another acting coach, or if it was a very different process for you.
I was working with Shelly again. Shelly is my girl. I love her. She's just so great. I feel like she knows me so well, and she's so great at character analysis that like when I got the audition, I was super excited about it because I'd like gotten the audition and I literally called my manager and I was like, whatever this is, like this is the kind of thing that I want to do. I'm so excited about this. I want to do this so bad. And he was like, "Oh, great. Like I'm glad you're excited about it." And I like came to Shelly with it and I was like, "I'm ready. Like I know what I had already like figured out who Ella was and who I wanted her to be." So I felt like the work of that was not too hard at that point, but it got easier, of course, as I got more information and intel about her.
Yeah. And I love that this was something that you talked to your team about is these are the types of projects that I want to be doing. Because if you kind of changed and shifted the way that you're looking at scripts a little bit more, especially since going and studying at NYU and having to think about the balance of time between those two spaces.
Yeah, absolutely, because there are so many auditions. Not it's a little bit slower now, of course, but like at the time I was super, super busy. I was auditioning for a bunch of different things. I was coming off of the Orville. I was doing press for the Orville. So I really wanted to spend my time doing things that I really cared about, and I knew I could put forth my best effort. And when I saw that, I was like, this is what I want. Like, this is great. This is incredible. Like, as much stuff as you can find like this, like, if I don't get this, this is what I want to do. So yeah, that part it was great. Yeah.
I love that. And in playing Ella in this series, obviously so much is about the relationship that she has with her mom, which is so interesting because she's pulled away from her mom and she's sent to go live with her dad in South Africa. But we still feel that throughout. And there's even a moment where she says, if I only had one more day to live, I would want to spend that time with her. And so how did the relationship with her mom kind of really lead a lot of the decisions that you made and how you wanted to play this character?
Well, I just drew a lot from my relationship with my mom. When I was 13, I toured with the Lion King, and it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. It was a great experience, but I didn't get to have my mom with me, and a lot of the other kids did get to have their parents with them. And it was just so hard. Like, all I wanted to do was go back home and be with my mom, especially at such a young age. So Ella's relationship with her mom, I drew a lot from my own relationship with my mother and that feeling of really wanting to go home. And every decision that she makes in the show, as terrible, like she makes really, I don't want to say terrible, but she makes unique choices, but she has to go home. Like that, her mom is her life. So yeah, every decision that she makes is basically so that she can go back there.
She's also someone who is incredibly well educated and informed politically and culturally and has really strong beliefs. Did you feel like a lot of that came from her mom, that her mom was the one that had kind of instilled that in her growing up?
I definitely feel like that came from her mom because she's just so that level of awareness at her age, I think it's learned. Also from her father as well. Her father is also very intelligent and she doesn't have the greatest relationship with him, but you know, a lot of those things are learned.
And with her mom as well, her mom obviously is going through certain health issues. And we see how Ella has had to really be a part in taking care of her, reminding her to take medication. And so, did you feel like Ella was someone who had to grow up in the world a little bit before she necessarily was ready and would have otherwise?
Absolutely. Like that definitely made her have to mature a lot quicker. Also, just a lot of the things that she has to do in the show, like spying and everything, it takes like such a high level of maturity to be able to do something like that. Also, that's just crazy. It's so crazy to expect someone at 15 years old to handle such an adult job. So, yeah, she has so much responsibility and it's hard, it's difficult, and you get to see that throughout the show, how much it weighs on her.
Did you find as well that there was a lot of interesting stuff in playing this character because like you're talking about she's very adult and very mature in a lot of ways, but she's also still a teenager and as you were saying sometimes doesn't make the right choices. And so it feels like she kind of goes back and forth between these two spaces as she should.
Yeah, literally. It's so hard to navigate, especially once she starts to cultivate friendships and relationships in her new environment to try and balance that and also the job that she has to do. It's like it's super difficult. Even Diane, we get to see her struggle with that and how hard it is for her, and she's an adult woman.
And the relationship that she has with her stepmom, with Diane, is really interesting to watch because at the beginning, the transaction is purely, I'll help you with this, and then I get to go home, and that's what it's for. But you do see Diane starting to become someone that she's not necessarily close with, but that she does trust in certain ways. And so, how did you feel like the relationship with Diane really evolved for Ella throughout the show?
Well, it's so definitely in the beginning it was very tense, very rocky, but I think at a point Ella realized that she had to have somebody on her side and she had to have somebody that she could talk to about the mission because she has to lie and do so many things that are like very difficult and she needs help in balancing that and her relationship. So Diane's able to help her out with navigating that a little bit throughout the series.
And the reason that she leaves home in the first place is because she is in the center of a police protest and is there literally watching one of her friends being attacked by the police officers and everything that follows. And I was very curious about your experience of filming those scenes because they set up so much for the rest of the show, but it also tells us at the very beginning so much about who Ella is as a person and what's important to her.
Yeah, definitely. And those scenes, it was really tense, of course, filming those, the energy and just everything that was going on throughout the filming of those scenes. And yeah, we filmed that literally those scenes the last day before winter break. And like that was the last thing we did. And I was so happy that it was the last because I was able to go home and like decompress and relax after that because it was so stressful. And I've been to protests before, but I've never been to any that have gotten that physically violent. And during the scene, I actually got hit in the face a little bit, but I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want to make it a big thing. But there was somebody who was like a stunt person who hit me, and I was like, ah, but I like felt it, and that like ignited the fear in my body.
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's also so much to watch in terms of Ella when she first gets to her dad's place because she doesn't have anything that's familiar to her. It's not a place that she's ever lived. She hasn't really been around her younger stepbrother before. She doesn't have friends and family in her corner constantly. And so for you, how were those scenes really different? And how did you feel like Ella was going to be in a place where she's kind of trying to figure out who she is in this completely new environment and world?
Honestly, I drew a lot from my experience of going to South Africa and not knowing anyone and having not a clue about anything there. Like I kind of knew they told me about things to expect, but I was just like, I wanted to come into it and feel like Ella felt. So I didn't do a whole lot of research. I was just like, I'm just coming. I'm just gonna exist. I'm gonna do my thing. So yeah, it was very similar to my experience. So I was able to feel it from that part of me.
And at the beginning, it feels like she's protecting herself by not wanting to make any friendships. And, she's very guarded with everybody around her. How
Mhm.
did you feel like things really changed for her once she allows herself to open up to the idea of friendship? Because Greta's trying to be her friend from day one. And eventually she does let her in and get really close to her.
Yeah, she has absolutely no interest in making any connections in the beginning. Like her behavior is like wild, like to come in and just be like, but she thinks that she's going home. So she feels like, oh, it's okay to just do this and it's okay to just do whatever I want to do. But I think she realizes like she's gonna be there for a long time. It's gonna make it a whole lot easier if she has friends. Like it'll be miserable. Absolutely, like more miserable than she'll be more miserable than she already is if she doesn't have any friendship or connection. And also just Greta's character is so friendly and so funny and so bubbly and so welcoming that it's like one of those things that she kind of has to. She's like, well, this girl is so sweet. It's like you have to be friends with her.
And what was the difference for you in playing scenes once she does allow herself to open up in that way a little bit? Because you get to kind of play with her softer side a little bit.
Those were really fun for me because also it's such a great cast. Everybody is so phenomenal and so kind. So to be able to like have fun and just like vibe and chill with like my homies, like that was cool. I really enjoyed that part.
I also really like that Ella's someone who has a lot of strong opinions, but really like stands behind her beliefs in so many ways. And
Yeah,
when you first read the scripts, was that one of the things that really jumped out at you is like, this is someone who's very strong with all of their convictions and beliefs?
absolutely. That's what I really loved about her. Because personally, like I I stand behind my beliefs, but I'm a little bit more shy in like my delivery sometimes. So reading that, I really admired her ability to just be like, this is what I believe, and I don't care if you like it or you don't. So that was like my favorite thing about her, and I thought that was really great character to be able to play, and I feel like it could be so inspiring to a lot of people.
That's so great what you bring out as well of kind of it marrying up with your personality of being very strong with your beliefs, but still having a shyness. Because I feel like Ella also still has a shyness to her. There are moments where she doesn't feel as confident to speak out. And so did you feel like that allowed you to bring a lot of yourself into who she was?
Definitely. Yeah.
I love that. I also want to talk about Ella's relationship with her dad because he is obviously a parent that hasn't been as close to her and she hasn't really spent as much time with him in the last couple of years since he moved away and got remarried. And so there's a lot that she's dealing with. And did you feel like she'd kind of been able to put some of it a little bit to the back of her mind and being around him and his new wife and kid, that really just brings everything to the surface for both of them and trying to figure out how to be a father and daughter together?
Yeah, she definitely, I think she had an image of her mind of what her father was up to without her and the life that he lived, and it just wasn't true. And she was able to see that by being there and being around him, and she's able to like know that he's still her dad. Like at the end of the day, he's not just this guy who left and da da da. Like those things were really bad and he shouldn't have done them, but like he's still her father and he still cares about her and he still loves her and his life isn't perfect. Although he has this really fancy, nice house, it's not it's not perfect. So yeah, and it was really nice to play. There's a scene we have where we get to like have a heart to heart about it at the end of the series, and that was one of my favorite scenes to film. It was great working with Sule and to just get to feel that sense of like love
Yeah.
in the series. Yeah.
It's a beautiful scene between the two of you because it's also he holds himself accountable and he apologizes for some of the mistakes and realizes that he could have done certain things a little bit differently. And how did the two of you prepare going into a scene like that? Because it is more of, an emotional and heartfelt scene for the both of you.
So we'd filmed a bunch of scenes that day before we started working on that one. And honestly, our schedule was so busy and so packed. We were working like 6 days a week and we were doing 12 hours overtime some days. So it was really hectic. And I'm in like a kind of a lot of scenes in the show, like in a lot of the frames. So I had a lot to learn. And that day, I got my script and I was learning the lines right before we did that scene and I was so stressed because I'm like, this is a monologue. There are like multiple monologues in this. So I'm like running the lines. And we did the rehearsal and I was like, okay, like this is good. Like I feel it. Like I don't know, it was something about not overworking it and not overdoing it. It just came naturally, I feel.
I love that. And in talking about one of the plot points later in the season, I wanted to talk about for Ella what it's like going through the experience of the kidnappers taking her and some of her friends, because it feels like that really changes things for her as well. She's had this idea of the presence of danger, but then she's suddenly in the center of it. And it is one of those moments where you get to see who is she in that moment. And so, did you have a really strong sense of how she was going to respond to those situations based on the writing and the scripts? Because it doesn't feel like she changes who she is at any point. She still stands up for what she believes in and tries to protect the people that she cares about.
Yeah, so when we did that scene, I didn't exactly know how I was going to play it until I felt like what it was like to be in that room and be with Victor, who plays Noko. And just the like it was really tense and really intense and to have like all the weapons and all the people and the masks and I was like really scared and being with Victor who is my friend but at that point we were friends at that point too but yeah I just was like, this is terrible. Like I felt like in my body, I was like, oh my God, like I have to protect him. Like this isn't safe. So just bouncing off of that and just like the energy and like all the people in the room, the kidnappers, I was terrified, but like that's what needed to happen.
She's also an incredibly talented artist and loves drawing pictures. And it feels like that's not only something that she does for herself, but also it's a way of connecting with other people. And so, how did you feel like drawing and art kind of connected her to herself, but also to people around her?
Yeah, so I think sometimes Ella isn't super clear about she isn't the best with communicating with her words, like her love and her admiration of people, but she's able to show that through her art by giving people her art. Also, I think her art is her way of like photographing and remembering those moments and like yeah, that's what it is for her.
It's also really sweet to see how protective she is over her stepbrother. And there's a moment where her dad and Diane are kind of struggling a little bit in their relationship. And there's certain choices that Ella makes to protect her stepbrother. And did you feel like some of that was trying to make sure that he didn't go through some of the things that she had gone through and that he had a more solid and stable feeling family life than she got the chance to have?
Absolutely. Yeah, she was trying to protect him from what she'd experienced because it you can tell how much it weighs on her and it weighs on her a lot throughout the series and it's years of this and she knows what it's like and she's like nope I'm not doing that like he can't have that and if she's willing to sacrifice telling the truth and being honest to save that she's just going to do it.
Did you think that was the biggest reason that she chooses to not tell her dad about spying for Diane? Because, it feels like there's a lot of things that go into that decision when he asks her outright, like, are you doing this for her? And she chooses to say no.
I definitely think it's for the sake of Kwame.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because some part of me thought maybe it's for Diane because they did start to build a relationship, but at that point she's so fed up with her that I think it really is solely for Kwame.
And this was also such a great experience for you and getting to come in and play the lead role in a show. What were some of the things that you feel like you really learned along the way or really challenged you in a lot of new and different ways in leading this series?
Hmm. There were definitely a lot of challenges with this series, but it was so great to be able to face those challenges and actually complete it and like be done with it. Like I'm just really proud and happy that I'm so proud of all of us. Like we worked so hard and for so long and like it was a struggle and we all got so close throughout the series. I'm just really proud and so grateful for everybody who worked on the series first of all. But yeah, it was awesome. I'm trying to think of specific challenges. Well, really, it was the schedule thing. That was the biggest challenge for me throughout the series is keeping up with the schedule and making sure that I still knew my lines and I was able to come to set and be prepared. And I was able to figure it out. It felt like boot camp, and I'm happy that I did it, and I feel stronger for it. And also, my memory got really, really good. Like, it's really funny because I would just like read the sides because it's what I had to do because I didn't really have a lot of time. But I would read the sides once, and I'd be like, okay, there it is. It's in there. So yeah.
It's so great. I'm so happy it was such a wonderful experience in making this show. So congratulations on the series and thank you so much, Imani.
Thank you so much. Thank you for talking to me.